I never even played, I mean, I played piano my whole life, but I never even played piano on stage until I was doing those. I would not be doing this show. I would not be coming to Australia, like legitimately. Like it set me on a completely new path that I would have never been doing.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy and life with yours truly, Michael Kahan. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Today's chat is a lot of fun. Ariana has a great energy about her. Her reflections and insights are brilliant. There's great banter. She's smart. It's the whole package. I love this chat. Ariana is super cool. Plus, her growth and evolution as an artist and person over time is amazing to hear. This was such a fun and easy chat. I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Ariana and The Rose is a singer-songwriter from New York. She's a synth-pop artist known for her 80s-inspired sound, theatrical flair, and honest storytelling. Having previously opened for Cyndi Lauper, shared the stage with Lizzo, played the keys with Coldplay on SNL, and with over 15 million music streams and now 70 million views on her viral piano chat videos, she's cultivated a dedicated global following. Now, Ariana and The Rose is extremely excited to make her Australian debut. She will be in Sydney for the Sydney Comedy Festival. Check it out. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about growing and evolution, intuition, her unique style, filling her first 600-seater show and what she did to sell the show out, when things go wrong on stage, synth, learning from breakups and making a great show about it, going on vocal rest for 6 months, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, I'd love it if you would share the podcast around, like, comment, subscribe, tell your mates. It really helps the podcast grow and helps ensure I can lock in amazing guests like this one. Okay, cool. Thanks so much. Let's get into it. Okay, we'll go on, but I'll start because I have like 5 different places, but I'll start with a cool one.
Okay.
For the people watching the podcast, they can check out your background, and it is really cool. You've got great style.
Oh, thank you.
I was looking at your merch, and your merch is super cool, especially the light and space and the constellation design. Can you tell me about this and how you got involved in selling this stuff and where the ideas come from and all of that?
Yeah. Oh my God, thanks so much for taking a dive into my all of the tabs on my website. I used to make a show called Light and Space, and I started it in London. I lived in London for 4 years, and then I moved back to New York. I'm from New York. And the show was like a hybrid of immersive theater and a concert and a party. So there was a famous show in New York called Sleep No More that had started. It was done by a British company called Punch Drunk. And it was like, there was like a big sort of immersive theater movement that happened in New York, where it was like, there were no seats. You're not in a theater. It's like the show happens in and around you, and you like move with the show. And so that became like a very popular sort of, that show specifically ran for 10 years in New York, but that kind of theater got very popular. And then like, you know, Nike would want to do like an immersive like event, you know. It was like it got like so popular that it became like corporate eventized. And so the concept of my show came from that kind of wave of stuff that was happening. I was like, oh, why don't we adapt this for a concert? And so the show was these like glitter aliens have come to throw a rave.
That's a great idea.
As they do.
Yep.
As they would.
We come
And
here to rave.
100% glitter aliens pop down in New York. They're like, we know what they want to do. They want to rave. And so basically you would go to a party. It would be like you're just going to a party. And then at any point in the party, like there would be dancers on the bar. There would be a performance happening on the other side of the room. It was like a 3-ring circus. And then the whole thing culminated in a concert, an Ariana and The Rose concert. And it was cool. And like right before we would go on, it was like all of the different, there were like 10 dancers and performers, so they were all doing individual things, and then right before the concert started, like everybody was in sync all of a sudden, like around the party, and then the concert would start.
How do you organize something like that? That's crazy.
I was so tired. I was exhausted. No, I mean, I worked with an amazing team of people, and the whole show was timed. So like there was like it was like a DJ set, but it was effectively like a preset DJ set. And all of the dancers, like we had rehearsed it, and they all like knew their timestamps, and for the most part, they definitely like missed. Like I would be like, why isn't someone on bar 3? Like, where are they? You know, I'm in the back, like having a panic attack as a producer. But anyway, long story short, that merch was created for that show, and the sort of like celestial, intergalactic imagery and aesthetic was a huge part of my music project for a really long time.
That's so cool. I've got so many questions on this. I would imagine you have to have like 100 dress rehearsals on this, but that's time and money and cost. And as a performer and a producer, you don't have the time. So how do you, like, obviously it sounded like 98% went brilliantly, and then the little bit of perfectionist was like, that person didn't do that.
Sure.
How do you do it? How do you balance it?
Well, we did basically what we would do is, it was kind of like there were different departments. So like there was like a lighting and projection, which was, when I say department, it was one person, this amazing lighting designer and projectionist named Seth Kirby, who lives in Brooklyn, and he created like this amazing, we had like these lights that were all like tungsten lights, so they were sort of like old school, sort of like showy, like it's like tungsten is like that sort of more yellowy, it feels more like vaudeville lighting, and we had projection, and so he made all of that. And then I had a musical director, and he and I like created the show and the music, and then there were all the dancers and the choreographers, so like everybody would work separately like at the same time, and then we would come together for, I think we did it wasn't that much, because like it, as you said, it was expensive. Like I think it was like all together like 2 days of a tech rehearsal, or 3 days of a tech rehearsal all together, with like 1 or 2 dress rehearsals. And then the show itself was a concert. It was an hour long, and I was singing and dancing, and the performers were incredible. We had a lot of I was really fortunate to meet like some really amazing dancers. One girl was like a voguer. And so she would do like a whole voguing section. So we really voguing is like a style of dance that's very prevalent in club culture. And I think like a really good example of that in the mainstream is like, well, now, I mean, voguing is there's like different voguing like competitions if you go to clubs. It's like wow. Very part of that culture, really across the world. There's different like houses, like where there's like groups of people that are sort of a part of their own ecosystems. But like very famously, Madonna on like the Blonde Ambition tour had like a lot of that in her tour. And that became like one of the first times in the 80s that really came to the forefront. It's very representative in like queer culture, LGBTQ culture, where it's really, I mean, there's like a ton of history that goes with voguing. So it was really doing the show was like my way of making, you know, something for that community in New York. And it was really fun. It was just like a really fun night. We just really wanted to have like an old school, you know, one of those nights where you're like, God, that was fun.
That sounds amazing, especially I haven't seen a show quite like that, but just having different things at different times like draw you in, and just the 360 experience is so rare. That is amazing. What inspired? It's one thing to be inspired by it, but then realizing, you know, having the confidence to pull something like this off. This is not just like doing a one-person show, which is tough. This is like crazy. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I definitely had a moment before we did the very first one. I did the very first one in London when I had the idea. And that was sort of more of like a layman's version, where like I had like one projector in like a white room, and the band was on the floor, and like we had some stations of different things people were doing. And then when we brought it to New York, I was like, okay, we're going to like build this show. And I definitely had a moment. We did it at a venue called House of Yes. That is a really amazing venue in
Yeah.
Bushwick. And I remember like right as we were about to do it all, we had sold it out. The first show was like 600 people the first show. And I remember being like, am I like so insane? Like, am I crazy? That I was like, I have this idea. I like got all these people to say yes to do it. I like sold tickets and like people were, then it was because your fear sort of like jumps, right? Like at first, for me at least, like I didn't have any fear. At first I was like single-mindedly focused about like getting this weird idea I had off the ground. And then I'm a big believer in like, jump and the path will appear, the universe, whatever your frame terminology for it all is. I'm a big believer in that. And I got really lucky and had a bunch of really incredible collaborators come my way and help guide me and make sure that I, like Seth especially, like he really grew up in like New York club kid culture, and like he really helped guide me to make sure that like we were creating something that was like really honoring like even the DJ set, like the house music we were playing, the specific DJs we were working with, like really about like the community we were in, which I knew about, but I also knew enough to know that I didn't know as well as like so many other people. So I got really lucky in that way. And then it was like, okay, we made the show. And then I was like, is it going to be me and like 20 people in a room? This is so embarrassing. Like I've like gotten all these people roped in. And then we sell the tickets, and then I'm like, oh shit, now I have to like be good. Now you got to like do the show. Now the show has to be good. So your fear sort of like, moves around. But I'll never forget the first time we did that show, and we had like a little platform in the middle of the room that was like a little stage, and then there was the bigger stage. And I remember coming on stage, and nobody knew who I was. They weren't coming to like an Ariana and The Rose concert. They had no idea who I was. They were like, maybe some people knew who I was, but really everybody was there because they heard about a fun party. And I remember getting on stage and people like screaming, and I remember being like, okay, we did it. I was like, all right.
Screaming is a great reference point.
Yeah, it was really cool. And that was from like it was theater. I mean, it really was theater. It wouldn't have mattered. Like you could have, not to like sell myself short on it, but like arguably you could have taken me out of it and put obviously a commanding performer in the middle of the room when we got to that section of the show, to the concert of the show. But we had designed the night so that by the time we got to that part of the night, you as an audience member were like just so revved up by the whole night. You were like, yeah, whoever was like coming on stage. But I stopped. I did that show all the way up till COVID, and then we stopped because of COVID.
Is that what brought you back to America, or?
No, I was already living in America. We started doing the show in 2017, and then in New York, and then we did it in America. We did it like in New York a bunch. We had a residency at House of Yes. We took it to LA. We did it in LA. And then we were gearing up to do a quarterly. So we were going to do it for the whole year, like once a quarter in New York. And then COVID happened, and
COVID.
And it's also like nightlife culture changed. I'm old now. That night, like I was getting home with the sunrise. You know what I mean? Like that night it's a full on night, and you're producing till, even though I was performing, I was producing till the door, till the doors are done. So till the last person leaves the venue. So now I do a sit down show. Now I do a 1-person show where everybody sits down, and that's a reflection on who I am as a person.
Okay, that's hilarious and also not true.
That's the truth.
Bookmark.
Genuine truth.
I love sitting down. That's why podcasts are
Sitting
great. There's
down.
this one guy. There's this one guy who does podcasts on a treadmill. That is insane.
Why?
But yeah, he's a fitness guru, so maybe it's part of the brand. I haven't interviewed him. I've just seen him in interviews. But I want to go back to this because I've been thinking about this actually for a while, and you gave me more context, which is great. With the 600-person show in the House of Yes in London.
Yeah. No, it was in New York. It was in New York.
The first time you did it, was it in London? Which one was the 600-person one?
New York.
Okay, regardless.
Yeah.
This is crazy to me because, as we said, it's one thing to get the idea, then 2, to actually put the show together, 3, to find the right people, 4, to trust, which will pigeonhole as well because you're kind of trusting a lot of people to really help you with this vision. But when you put it out and was made, or you like put it out to the world, I think a few weeks in the lead up to the show, you'd only sold 35 tickets. I want to know what was going on in your mind at that stage, because from 35 tickets to 600 tickets, also 35's like can be like pretty good, but you've got a 600 person venue. I want to know, how did you deal with that, and how did you change and transform that number?
Oh my God, you really did your research. Yeah, I had a nervous breakdown, and then I was like,
Probably
no,
several.
it's coming. It's crazy. My mom was like, this, we can't live like this. You have to calm down. Well, partially, how much do you buy tickets to stuff in advance?
Probably, unless if it's like a big comedian, I'm sometimes 6 months in advance.
For a big comedian, you're saying?
American comedian. If an American comedian comes, just because they sell out. But for like a regular Melbourne show, very close.
That's what I'm saying. Right. You're buying it like sometimes day up. So now this is a party. So like it's not a concert, it's a party. Yep. So part of it was that, and I wasn't, as a musician, I'm an independent artist. I've been an independent artist my whole career. I was able to headline a tiny show in New York. I could probably do like 100, maybe less, like a 60-person show in New York. I was not a ticket seller at that point in my career, which was part of why I decided to even do this. Because I was like, well, if I can't get them to come off the back of my name, I can get people to, I'm going to create an experience that's so undeniable that people just want to come because it's fun. And then people will discover me through that experience. And I mean, in hindsight, I'd be like, girl, maybe we could do something that's like a little more chill. But as I said, I was like a woman possessed. And I looked up, and I mean, again, it was a different time. It makes me sound so old, but it was like I hit up like every like nightlife listing, every single website that put out like, this is what's happening. Like I called everyone I knew. We also had like, so we did sort of like regular promo through like what was the internet, like what, like Instagram or whatever you were doing at that point. It wasn't the same way it is now where you're going to like run geo-targeted Instagram ads, like none of that. You like put it up online and people saw your posts. And we also had like people that were coming that were like hosts of the party. So we worked with like people that were nightlife personalities. I don't know if she did the first show, but Amanda Lepore, who's like a trans icon, incredible person. She was one of the first hosts we had. I think we did a Pride show and she was the host for that. And so like those people bring their community, they bring their people, they promo it, stuff like that. But for that first show, I'll never forget, I was freaking out. And Seth, who I've mentioned, said to me, if you make something good, the kids will come. And I was like, that's a lot of faith. I was like, I don't know. I was like, they don't know about it. He's like, I'm telling you. He's like, if you make something that's actually cool, somehow the kids come. They figure it out. And I was like very deeply stressed by that. But it was that.
As in, you didn't think that would be cool, or there was more pressure to make it?
I had no proof of concept that the kids would come, nor did we know that it was cool or not. You know, we hoped it was, but you couldn't. We thought it was, but so I think it was like a partially people's ticket buying behavior, and like I think most people bought tickets at the door. Oh no, that's a lie. We were sold out in advance. I'm pretty sure this one we were sold out. We sold out like day of or something. But it was like within, I remember we did it on Eventbrite, and I made the Eventbrite. Do you guys have Eventbrite?
Yes.
It's like a ticketing platform. Yeah. And I'll never forget all day, like staring, like watching the tickets go up, like watching the tickets go up. We were sold out we were sold out like pretty soon, I think, like with on the day. But I think I think it was like I didn't understand people's like behavior. I didn't know how the event behaved yet was part of it. And then I did an enormous push and called everyone I knew. We had hosts. We were like, you call everyone you know. They had to bring people. They posted online. I have a publicist. I think we got some press in advance, but I don't think anything that was like large scale. But like it was like an all hands on deck situation, and it worked out. But it was a big swing. It was a big swing.
I'm sure, and especially in the lead up when you're probably selling most of the tickets as well. And I know you mentioned having a mental breakdown. It's one thing to keep going, moving forward, but also you also need to create the show as well. So
Totally.
it's a lot of things pulling you in a different direction. How did you? I know you said you were going that way, but how did you actually stay grounded and actually go, no, I've still got a show to perform?
I believed in what I was doing. I really loved what I was doing. And I knew the show was good. And the performers were so good. And the music was my music for the concert part of it. But we did cool stuff with it. Like we mixed in like remix stuff and other songs, and I don't know how to describe it. I like sometimes you just have stuff in you that you're just like, I just got to do this thing. I just got to do it. And me now, I think, could be more like at peace with it. Like I wish I could go back to her and be like, you're doing this no matter what. So why don't you just give yourself a little peace? And if it goes great, it goes great. But I couldn't do that then. Then I was like, if it goes horrible, life is over. So I like my experience with it was colored by like me, was colored by some of my own like attachment to it, which makes sense when you're working so hard. But also as like the leader of the ship, you don't get a ton of space and time to freak out. Like I had like one freak out in my house by myself, but like you can't, if you're scared or it's failing or you don't know if people are coming, like I have a room full of people that I have to be like, let's go, like we're going. So in that way, I didn't get a ton of space for it. And I think I was like, this cannot fail. Like I was like, there is not room for this to fail. Even though there was this thing in the back of me that was like, you might be singing to like your parents and your friends with like 30 people working on this show.
It's such a beautiful story, and also how you just knew inside that you had to do that. We're going to bookmark that as well. Were you able to enjoy the show afterwards?
I was able to enjoy the show while it was happening. Like as soon as I got on,
amazing.
As soon as I got on stage, I've had like a couple moments in my life I can think of, 2 or 3, I would say, not many, where you have these moments where like, and maybe I think I hope that people have gotten to experience this, where like almost like things like slow down, like you're like you're so present that like things become really slow. And that was like a very distinct moment in my life where I remember getting on stage and seeing everybody and seeing the room full, and it was like we did it. And then I was able, because then the hour show was my show, that was in my control. Like everything else up until then, whether people came, whether the dancers are out there and they're doing their show, but like something could go wrong, and something could go wrong while I was on stage too. But you're in my house now. You know what I mean? Like I don't worry when it's like when I'm on stage. So I was able to really be in it. And I was like, we did it. And that was what I did it for. Really, it was like best case scenario. So I think I felt like a moment of like, oh, I'm really where I'm supposed to be in this exact moment, which you don't get, you're lucky if you get a bunch of those in life.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
That is so cool. I wrote down like 50 things. Also the slowing down. I've had very few experiences where you can kind of almost look outside of yourself.
Totally.
And just like you can appreciate it. Time is like, people do it in the movies as well. I'm so glad that you had that experience. And in terms of when things go wrong, because as a performer, you've been doing this for ages, whether it was musical theater, even dancing at a young age, or just performing with your band as well. Have you always been someone that can just be like calm, present in the moment? Like once you're on stage, you flick the switch and you're just on?
Yeah, I think I've gotten. Well, I think now I'm like, now I'm maybe too comfortable. Now it's like, okay, girl, like walk it back. Um, I think I always have felt really comfortable and safe on stage. I think that cultivating the sense of like I've got you to an audience where like no matter what happens, the lights could go out, but the audience doesn't ever have to worry because like it's a weird unspoken thing that happens with audiences and performers. And you've been to shows where the performer is not that way and the performer is sort of stressed. And you as an audience member are stressed for them. You're like,
It's the worst.
it's the
Yeah.
worst.
You
You're
can't
like,
you can't enjoy. Yeah.
you sort of have this like a little bit of like, it's not secondhand embarrassment, but it's like, you're just sort of on edge for them. And when
Yeah.
you're with a performer that's taking care of you, you can relax and enjoy the show. And no matter what happens, they've got you. So I think I always had a version of that. I think that was like something that I was fortunate to sort of I always like enjoyed that about performing, that I like had that, but I've gotten much better at it. I you know, you're young, you get rattled, something goes wrong, you know, whatever. Now, I mean, I did a show in London in January and like everything went wrong. Like my computer, like something went wrong with my computer. I fell off of a stool. I fell off the stool. I was like, girl, you're sitting down on, you put yourself on the stool. How did you fall off the stool?
Yeah.
And
No
like,
one pushed you.
it was like insane. I fell like several times. I'm the only person on stage. There's nowhere, no one tripped me. Like it
You're
was
like,
like I tripped
"Ta-da, it's part of-"
my shoe came off. Like, and after the show, one of the audience members was like, she was like, your physical comedy's amazing. And I
That's
was like,
so great.
was not a part of the show. So like, you know, and I think lucky for me, I've sort of created my I am myself on stage. So I'm not, if something isn't, it can be slick, but it can also have like a sense of people can see a mistake and it can still be built into the performance and people don't have to feel afraid for you.
That's great. It wasn't like, oh, guys, this wasn't part of the show. Let me put my shoe on. Obviously, you're a seasoned performer.
Yeah, I mean, when my shoe came off, I was like, God, I'm so sorry, guys. I have to put my shoe on. Like,
yeah, of course.
Cinderella over here, you know?
But it's still the way that I imagine, based on what you said, how you go about it as well.
Totally.
I assume you don't let it rattle you. But earlier on, was nerves ever a thing with you? Or was it more with time, with age, with just, you know, getting better with each performance?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think I was never really nervous on stage, but I have become more myself on stage. So I think it was more like, if I look back through my career, it's like I can see myself trying on different personas and like how to be on stage, which all may be versions of myself, but like even doing Light and Space, that show, like I did not talk during Light and Space. It was like I was sort of like aloof. I was this like kind of alien-esque, you know, pop singer. The music is very like Robin, very synth poppy, very 80s synths. So it was like very sort of larger than life. So I'm not, I mean, and now on stage, you like can't shut me up. Now I like all I do is talk on stage. So it's such a different, you know, it's such a different thing. And I don't think one is better than the other per se, but I do think that this version, I think if I were to like ever do that show again, I would talk on stage. Like I would bring that in, you know, to what I'm doing, because I love that like intimacy with the audience. And I think I was always looking for that. I think even when I was doing those shows and those shows were successful, I was like, God, I feel like there's a part of me I'm not showing. And it just took me a really long time to figure out how to work that in.
That's brilliant. And what I've also noticed from doing all the research is the transition and growth as a performer and an artist. Your music's changed over time. You're now leaning into, is it the comedy space? I don't know if you call it that.
Sure.
Is that like cool to look back, you know, over each like marker and see like you've grown, you know, the transition? Is it something you think about?
Yeah. I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about it, but maybe now I will go back. Something I recently went back through my catalog for I do a lot of like sync work, like putting songs in film and TV and stuff like that. So if I get like a brief in, I'll go back. You know, they're looking for an uplifting song about whatever, devotion. And you're like, okay, let me go back through my songs and see what I have to be pitched for a Mitsubishi commercial. And
That's
so,
so cool.
yeah, it's a huge part of my how I think for all independent musicians, if anybody's a musician listening to this at all, sync is an enormously viable way to make a career in music. And I was going back through some stuff, and I had to like, long story short, I ended up sort of looking at some of my old music videos, and I was like, this holds up. I like this stuff. I was like, I look back at it, and I'm like, you know, because you could look back at your old work and be like, oh God, like, what was I thinking? What was I doing?
Yeah.
You know, and I look back at it, and like, I've had 1,000 hairstyles, I've had 1,000 hair colors, I've had purple hair, I've had a pixie cut, like I've had it all, and
Different styles as well.
everything. And I actually feel really proud of looking at all of that. And I feel like what it all still is like, none of it feels like, oh wow, that's like a completely different person. Like if you look at all of it, there's the sonically and even stylistically, like aesthetic wise, they talk to each other, which is cool to be able to see now.
Okay, I just keep on saying that's so wonderful because it's so cool to see the transition of an artist and also to look back because a lot of artists can be like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? And yes, you've grown and improved, but you know, going back to what you said before, you know, the feeling inside, I assume that's probably been a catalyst for a lot of the things that you've produced and made as well.
Yeah.
So is that just, do you get an idea and go, bam, we're doing this? Can you tell me a bit more about this? Because I love
Sure.
this stuff.
Well, the only other time I've really had something that was like kind of like Light in Space, where I was like, I've got this kind of kooky idea, and I'm a little like, you know, I have that like weird like meth look in my eye. The only other, the only other time was making the Breakup Variety Hour, was making the show I'm doing now. I had come out of this like horrendous breakup. I had a vocal hemorrhage and I got put on vocal rest for on and off for 6 months. I couldn't talk at all.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, it's not in the news. Which is, you can imagine me not talking for 6 months. Everyone was like, "Are you good? Like, are you gonna be? Are you gonna make it?"
That would have been hard. That would have been hard.
Which would be hard for anyone, but like especially hard for me. And it was honestly, it was amazing. It was like genuinely, not to sound like this person, I hate saying it like this, but like it was actually a transformative experience. I sound like such a douche, but like I mean that. Like you can't know how bad it is to be like so sad and heartbroken, and then for that people to be like, talk to no one, like sit with yourself. I was like, what do you mean? Like, it was, and you can't go do like any of your bad habits. Like you can't go like go out. Like, I mean, you could go out. I went to the club on vocal rest, which was a super interesting experience, but I've digressed way to the left. So point being,
wait. On that, sorry. Is that you like going clubbing and then you want to like scream and you're like, what do you just like put your hand over your mouth? Like, what is that like?
Just like faking it, like you know, sound comes out. You're just, no, I went with some friends and they just like laughed at me the whole time. Like they kept like trying to, they would like say something to me and then they knew I couldn't say anything. So they'd just laugh at me. I was like, you guys are bullying me. Like this isn't, but it was really fun actually.
I'm all for it in that.
Yeah. I mean, well, you really are very observant. Well, you can't talk to anyone. What are you going to do? You're going to look at everybody. And watching people in a club, which I don't really like. Clubbing's not my vibe these days. But it was so interesting watching everyone. I was like, oh, it's really very like a watering hole, you know? I was like, well, the club on a Friday night is, you're watching like, you know, guys like looking at like someone like looking at someone else to like want to go talk to them, or like a group of girls and like that dynamic, or like two people that like see each other and how they make their way to each other. It was cool, honestly.
There is a hidden language in like drunkenness as well,
100%.
which I only noticed. And I know, what was it? How I Met Your Mother do a bit on it. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but I used to go clubbing like 3 times a week, and which is too much for me. Yeah.
Wow.
Giving me a look.
Respect.
I used to drink for all of them, and then one day I was like, I actually can't do this. So anyway, I haven't like drunk since then, and I'd go sober, and I was like, this is like a different reality. All the people
Totally.
that do DMT, I was like, I understand different realities now. Like I completely like this. I'm at a different place to 98% of the people here.
100%. And it's so interesting if you're like, if you can be in like a neutral place, you know, like if you, because I feel like sometimes like someone can be sober or whatever and you have your own feelings about that. So you're like projecting that on everyone. But I was like,
Oh,
at that point, I was actually so happy to be on vocal rest. I was like, really, I had come to like a deep place of acceptance. And so I was like, loved watching everyone. It was a really fun experience. But while all of that was happening, I spent a lot of time watching Bette Midler videos and reruns of the Cher show on YouTube and a bunch of stuff like that. And I had gotten a grant from the mayor's office in New York City to make my next album. And so
cool.
I knew I was going to make an album, and I all I knew was that I didn't want to make just like a regular record. Like I didn't want to just like make a pop record, and I knew that it needed to be a one woman show. I just like knew. I just was like, I have to make a one woman show, which sounds super. I mean, both of these situations make me sound like super narcissistic. I'm like, let me make like
No,
a
no, no.
whole show around me, or then let me make it just about me. But
Yeah.
I knew that, and I wasn't sure for a while what that meant. Like I was like, what do I want to make a show about? Like, why are you making a one person show? Why should anybody come watch you stand on stage by yourself? Like what and so it took a minute for it all to click, and then I was watching this like old Bette Midler um show from the, I think it's a performance from the 70s, where she's in a theater and it's incredible. It's not a famous performance or anything. And it was before like Clams on the Half Shell and stuff, I think. But it just like clicked for me, and I had been making videos on TikTok, and I had been performing in piano bars and talking a lot on the internet about dating and relationships and all these things, and that seemed to really be resonating. And I had also like in like another part of my brain been thinking about, how do I connect the dots? Like, okay, this seems to be resonating with people. This seems to be, I'm having like a decent amount of virality from this. This is like expanding my audience. And so asking somebody to then just go listen to a song was like an extra step. Like I was like, how do I get it so like if somebody sees a talking video and then they want to come to a show, there's like a bridge gap. And then all of a sudden everything sort of like coalesced, and that was kind of how the Breakup Variety Hour idea happened. But it wasn't called the Breakup Variety Hour for a long time, and it was sort of like a weird work in progress. And I it was a storyline. It was like more of a theater show. Then I made the songs. You know, this making of the Breakup Variety Hour took maybe like, I would say door to door 2 years.
I've heard you talk about this, and this is phenomenal, and also talking about transition as well, and leading into different space, but how it originally was potentially about the actual person in the breakup, and then after the sequence of things, it's now not even about the person.
Totally.
To me, that's such a wonderful transition, because not only are you performing something which has impacted so many people, but also shows your healing along the way and
Oh,
how
thank you.
you've grown from that experience. Is that kind of like crazy to reflect on, see, or even like think about how it first started and what it is
Sure,
now?
yeah. I remember the very first time I did the show. So two people produced this album, or three people actually produced this album. Spencer's on, who's an incredible instrumentalist, multi-instrumentalist and producer. Andy Highmore, who has been a longtime collaborator of mine. He produced my first album. He did a lot of the production on this. And then Jessica Karpov, she co-wrote about half the record with me and did additional production on a bunch of the tracks. And the first time I did the show, I had like a map of the songs, and Spencer and I had gone into the studio in LA and we did live recordings with musicians, but they weren't like really produced. They were just studio recordings, and that helped kind of like sketch out the show. And then I had a show at Joe's Pub in New York, and I
Do you
wrote.
have a residency? there as
I
well?
don't
Or
I
was that
don't at the moment, but I have done multiple shows there. And I
nice?
would love if anyone from Joe's Pub is listening, I would love a residency there. I did that first show, and the whole show was so different than it is now. Not steps at all, like totally. I had like a voiceover that was my inner voice, and I like did scenes with her. She was like mean to me, and it was like a whole comedy bit, but it didn't really work. And the first 20 minutes of the show, I remember being on stage. It was like sold out, and it's not funny. The show's not funny, and that was fine. The audience wasn't like up. The audience was like, "What am I looking at?" I just thought it would be funny. Turns out trauma dumping on an audience for 15 minutes is not funny. They were like with me on the ride, but I was like, I don't want us to go on this ride. I don't want to go on this ride. And that was like a huge moment for me where I was like, I know that once making the show was a year and a half or whatever, but then once you make the show, I'm on the ride I'm on now for another year, 2 years, doing the show, performing the show. And I was like, I don't want to do this every night for 15 minutes. This isn't fun. They're not laughing. I'm not having a good time. I don't want to relive the like worst part of this experience every night. And it wasn't entertaining. And it showed me that I was like emotionally past that. And
Cool.
It wasn't at that point. It was like, okay, I've made this show. It has served some part of like my own personal healing. And now it's time to make the best show. Now it's time to like not think about me. Now it's time to like, what is the show that is the best for the audience? What is the best show as a performer? Like not as, like you understand this as a writer, like what is structurally the best thing to be making? And that was like a big turning point. I mean, I wish I didn't learn it in front of 200 people, but
Yeah,
whatever.
but as you said, it was still like safe and understood what you were doing.
Totally.
That's so interesting as well to, oh, okay. I've written like 50 points. I don't even know where to start. That's so cool. Did you, where do we, okay. With the comedy side, did you ever think that you would be doing comedy?
No.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't even funny in my 20s. I like literally wasn't even funny. I'm not even joking. I say this to my parents all the time. I'm like, was I funny? They were like, we didn't think so. So I don't know I had a bunch of trauma, I think, like late in life, and that,
that brings the best out of us.
Sped it up. No, yeah, I would have never been doing any of this had in COVID, I made my first record and my manager was like, you got to get on TikTok. And I was like 31. And she was like, you got to get on TikTok. And I was like, I am old. I don't want to be on TikTok. And
yeah, not old,
but you know what I mean? Well, I'm 36 now, but so, you said you're 36 too, right?
33.
Oh, see? So take it from an elder.
Yeah, my God, you are old.
From an elder.
Wow.
No, I started doing these like piano chat videos where I would play piano, like the vamping section of a concert where like somebody, you go to the concert and in between songs, Bruce Springsteen's telling his 20-minute story with the band vamping behind him. It was just that. And I was just looking for ways to, like show what the vibe of a live show was when you came to and I've always loved that section of a show. And it was easy to do, and there was no editing. Like I was just trying to make it easy. I had no idea that anybody was gonna care about that.
Okay, I've written I think 30 points, so this is going to be interesting. And going back to, I want to pigeonhole because you did like the piano chats as well, and it went a viral video. With this show that you're talking about now, you also, I've heard you talk about this, and also previously before with other shows, about doing something that you're proud of or you enjoy, because if it goes well, you're going to be performing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you realize that from this experience, or is it something you've been aware of?
That was advice advice that a friend of mine had given me when I started doing TikToks, because I was doing everything. I was doing like makeup videos, dancing videos. Like I wasn't just doing that at the time. I was just throwing paint at the wall. And he was like, don't make anything that you don't like making. If something has a ton of editing and you hate editing, don't do that, because if it goes well, which is ultimately what you want, you're going to hate your life if you hate doing it.
Yep.
And it was the best advice, because it did go well. And I loved doing those piano chats. They were super fun. I loved doing them. And I would get dressed up in outfits. And, you know, the internet has changed since even those videos went viral. But I never even played, I mean, I played piano my whole life, but I never even played piano on stage until I was doing those. I would not be doing this show. I would not be coming to Australia, like legitimately. Like, it set me on a completely new path that I would have never been doing.
Crazy, because you also said that the album would never exist, which is obviously what you're talking about as now. And also, how come you never performed piano? Because I know you've done it at a young age. I think there was a story where I don't know if you were 6 or something, you heard something, you just played on the piano by ear as well. So you're obviously very talented. What was the potential
I'm so impressed by your knowledge is amazing. Sorry, what was your question? I was hung
go,
up on how much you knew.
You can just go, I'm so impressed. I'll make that my ringtone. I appreciate it.
Okay.
With the piano, obviously you were very talented. What was the hesitation to, perform?
I think, like, I grew up loving artists like Sarah Bareilles and, you know, obviously like Carole King and stuff. And I think I just thought I wasn't a good enough player. I think I just sort of, and I was also making like synthy music. So the music wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of like, it was often written on piano, but it wasn't like piano driven music. So, and I was living in more of this like clubby world for a really long time. So, that it was really just like a function of like, that wasn't the genre of music. But I think internally I had this fear that I like wasn't a good enough player, and that meant that I shouldn't be on stage doing it. And when I did my first headline tour after my first album came out in 2020, the album came out in 2022. I did my first US headline tour in 2023. I brought a keyboard on stage and I played, and I was like, just do it. But like, when I first started, like, my hands would shake. Like, I was so nervous to play. And now, you know, if there's like a piano in the building, I'm like, get it on the stage, let's go. You know, now I feel differently, and I don't care if I'm good, and if there are way better players than me, you know, but I don't care now.
But isn't that like crazy as well, where you had this like resistance where you didn't think you were the best, and you're obviously still very good, but what was it like that first moment after the nerves when you played it? Did it just unlock something creatively and also probably mentally as well for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, oh, I can do anything I want. I can do anything, right? And I definitely messed up too. It's not like I like played it perfectly. And the audience doesn't care. They just don't care. So, I mean, obviously if you can't get the song out, you know what I mean? Then I think we have a problem. But I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is that if the audience feels like you have them, if the audience feels you being good with you, which you really can't fake. Like, somebody could be on stage doing all the things, hitting all the marks, but if there's something off, an audience member won't be able to say what, but they'll be like, I don't know what it was. You know, you feel it. It's like an exchange. So I think that
Definitely.
I think it goes back to that I was in a much better place with that within myself. So I was able to play, and I had been playing in piano bars by myself with just a piano in COVID. Oh, right. What am I saying? I said my tour was the first time I did it like in like bigger spaces. But the first time I actually sat at a piano was like to 15 people in a piano bar on the Lower East Side, telling stories, singing the songs. You know, it was really the beginning of what ultimately is the Breakup Variety Hour. I just had no idea.
And with the TikTok, obviously it's COVID, you can't perform as much as well. What did you also get that feeling where you had to go on TikTok and, you know, do this? Did you feel it inside like the other examples?
You mean for this record, you mean?
Yep.
Well, no.
Because you did the piano chats, you were uploading to TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I post now. I'm like in a weird. Now I'm on the hamster wheel, aren't I? Where I'm just posting all the time. things have sort of morphed into like talking head videos where you just kind of like, talk, which I could imagine like most people who see those videos, they have no idea I'm a performer. They have no idea that I sing. If anything, they'd probably just think I'm a comic, right? You would think like that would be the most sort of, that's the more common thing. She's a stand-up comic, which I would never, I don't classify myself as I don't do stand-up. Stand-up is so hard. I have songs.
Have you?
I sing the songs.
Okay.
I am funny in between on my good days, but stand-up comedy is so hard to like get up there and land the joke. I give anyone who's a stand-up comic an immense amount of credit. If for me, I don't have to be funny my whole show. My show gets to go up and down and all around and be sincere and be earnest. And if something doesn't land and isn't funny, then we have a song. It's to save my ass,
You know what's so interesting on that? Stand-up comedians, they joke, they hate people like you because you guys just dominate with the music as well. Like if things don't necessarily, the joke doesn't land, you got this whole other skill set. And then you're saying stand-ups are so talented, whereas stand-ups are so jealous of people that can perform at your level and your
well, that's nice of you to say
as well.
I think it's all its own, you find your own niche.
Agreed. Okay. You also kind of remind me a bit of Charlene Kay in a sense. I think I had her on the podcast as well. She was super cool. Did you look at someone like her? I know it's different. She did like more rock stuff, and Caitlin Cook's a little bit different as well. She's also in New York. I don't know if you people or you New York musicians like know each other because it's such a unique. There's like not many people. I can't think of anyone that does quite what you do.
Yeah.
So that's
Charlene and I. It's actually funny. Charlene and I met. Weird story. Charlene and I met because we both played for Coldplay on Saturday Night Live wearing alien helmets.
That's the best hopeful friendship story I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, that's how we met. So
that's amazing. Oh, well, this springs to mind. I wanted to tie up a bit about your voice. So when you had that roughly 6 months and you couldn't speak, you said that it was quite transformative.
Yeah. What
did you learn about yourself not being able to speak and also process the breakup as well?
Yeah, good question. I think what it really did was like it really made me sit with like whatever my own internal chaos was. And I really didn't realize how much was like moving around in me, like the like frenetic energy that was like in my body. And I really had to get good with like being quiet. And I have always enjoyed my own company. Like I've never been somebody who like needs to fill the space with people. I've always enjoyed like solo traveling and doing things on my own. But this was different. This was like also learning that like not every thought in your head needs to come out of your mouth. That's a big old lesson learned for somebody like me. And I have taken that lesson with me. And being in situations and listening to people talk and having an opinion, but not sharing it, and not to say that you should silence yourself, but like it, for an overthinker like me, it created like the feedback loop and the dialogue in my mind. Like I was sort of like observing, it gave me an opportunity to like observe and sit with how I felt about things or what I thought about things in a way that I just never had before. And when, and I also, coming out of this breakup, I say at the beginning of the show, like, it was like my crash in 1929. Like it was the big one. And I, not all breakups are made the same. And this particular breakup was like was one that like really fucked with my identity. And I really thought that like this was my person, which like is insane because when you look back at it, you would, if there was like a camera, you know what I mean, the audience would have been like, girl, no, like, no, don't do it. Yeah. But you have to live through these things. And it really fucked with my identity and my sense of self. And so I think that combination, and I was so lost by the time I was like out of that breakup. I was like, I felt so far away from myself.
Is that you like being someone else, trying to fit in the relationship, trying to make it work?
Try like contorting yourself to try to like make it work. And um I was so anxious. I was so anxious all the time. And so, and when the whole thing fell apart, it was like quite dramatic. And it was like a pretty textbook, like toxic sort of relationship. But I had actually never really been in something quite like that before. And so it was like,
Was this, sorry for cutting off,
no,
was this the relationship where he threw you out?
oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So he like threw all my stuff out. But like, you know, when it was all over, I was like, well, why were you there though? Like, what? Like, I really, it's easy to be like, fuck him, whatever. But like, I was there. So that, like, the combination of like having that experience and then on it, like, I was on full vocal rest for like probably about 6 weeks, like at the very end, but I was on partial vocal rest on and off for 6 months. Which means you can like order a coffee, you can like tell a cab where you're going, but you can't like chit chat on the phone. The combination, I think, of like an identity loss plus sit with yourself, like that combo. I really do believe that like the universe, someone was like, we have to fix, like, this is time for us to just deal with whatever's happening here.
Yeah, the universe works for you and
certainly. Yeah, it was things that I think I also already knew. I mean, I had been in therapy. It wasn't like all of a sudden some like light bulb went off. It was just like taking responsibility for myself, really. Which has a large impact.
Well, it's really interesting you say that. Like, one of my friends just came out of a breakup and he didn't like the girl. The girl's actually lovely. We can always go he or she, they're crazy.
Yeah.
The girl's lovely, wasn't the right match. And he struggled. And he's been with girls. He's had a lot of girlfriends, all of that stuff. He struggled. And what I realized also, through me, not that I've had too many, is that we not only do we grieve the relationship and the person, even if there's a toxic element, we grieve who we were before, which you've also spoken about as well.
100%.
And that to me is so interesting because one of the things you've spoken about, and we'll have to do a part 2 in the future, is intuition and how you weren't listening to your intuition.
Yeah.
And speaking to you today and also doing a bit of research beforehand, intuition's been one of, I would say, your key secret ingredients to your success. It could be when you perform, how you write your music, also your collaboration buddies, because there's a lot of great people and there's also not a lot of great people. And you've been it sounds like very intuitive. Obviously, you probably made mistakes, but that's so interesting. So what was it like regaining or relearning or re-listening to your intuition from this?
That's such a good question. The first version of the show, it's funny you say that. What I mentioned earlier when I said I did that first version of the show and I was on stage and there was that that me that I spoke to. That was my intuition. So like the original like thesis of the show, the original sort of idea of the show was basically like I'm arguing with my intuition like for most of the show, and then like we sort of like turn a corner, and the show was really about my relationship with like my inner voice. So I think even you bringing it up like in conjunction with me talking about dealing with the breakup and then being on vocal rest or whatever, I think it was like this opportunity for me to like really sit with that in me, that like version, that intuition of me. And I remember early on in the relationship, I took some shrooms with a friend of mine, and maybe not early on, it was like actually it was like 4 or 5 months in. Took some shrooms with a friend of mine, and I'll never forget this. There was like a voice in my head that was like, hi, so this is bad. Like, this is tough. This is horrible. Like, you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. And I literally was like, we don't have time for this. Like, I was like, this is not, like, I don't, like, which of course, like, hello, psilocybin, everybody. But it was like, I mean, I'm not, if you're listening to this, be safe, don't do drugs. But it was definitely this moment where it was like my inner voice was like, bitch, you're not listening to me sober, so here I am. Like, you know what I mean? And it was like a very comedic, I mean, I was like freaking out. I was like, please leave me alone right now. Like, I don't have the capacity. But I tell this story as like a dramatized version of, I think, kind of what was happening. And it was kind of like, how many times are you going to abandon yourself for trying to love somebody? Like, how many times are you going to do it? And it was sometimes you got to learn that lesson. I think I had learned that lesson maybe in smaller ways prior to this, and then sometimes you got to get banged over the head with it. And I feel very grateful for it. And funny enough, actually, me and the guy that the show was inspired by or whatever, we're certainly not friends, but we're fine.
They're going to say we're back together. I was like, well, I was like, I don't know if you let your lesson.
Everyone's like, obviously the show is null now. This girl is full of shit. No. No, we're fine. We're like totally fine. I mean, we're not gonna hang, correct. But if we were both like in a bar, everyone would be fine to be there. Yeah.
Did you ever think, this will be maybe the last or second last question, did you ever think when you were first going through this that you'd be grateful for the experience?
No, absolutely not. I hoped. I was like, I can't wait for the day that I'm grateful for this. Like,
okay, that's interesting.
But I was like, maybe I never will. You know what I mean? I didn't know, but I had hoped. I was like, I hope I can get to a place where I feel grateful for this. But when you're in the middle of it,
of course.
Once I had gotten past like the psychosis you feel when you come out of like kooky toxic relationships, I was like, I know there's a lesson in here. I haven't found her yet. But I knew the whole time, when you're not listening to your intuition. It's not like, it doesn't like creep up on you. You know what you're doing.
And how does it feel now creatively? And also now that you've gone through that, you've listened, do you feel like you've reached, in a non-wanky way, I don't have a better word of saying this, but like, have you feel like you've leveled up in a sense?
I mean, I think that like, there's obviously lessons, like you just keep going, right? Like, I don't think you ever like you don't think you get anywhere. And you just like, I don't know anything, I do think that I remember when I finished this album last year, right before when the album went to mastering and whatever, I remember there was a few things that happened like synchronistically where it did feel sort of like the end of a little cycle. Like I just sort of like bookends, and I love stuff like that in life where you're like, oh shit, like that's so cool. Like, you can like see the bookend from something that was from years before. And so I had a few of those moments where it felt like a little bit of like a wink, and that felt cool. And I feel like something I didn't account for, which I talk about this actually in the show now, which was not originally in the show. In the last year, I've toured the show a decent amount, and I'm spending this year touring the show even more. But what I learned last year was that like the show, in doing the show, like that had things to teach me about it too. Like I wasn't done, and I couldn't have known that. And like having the audience in the room, hearing other people's stories, hearing their big heartbreaks and disappointments, like it reframed my own experience for me. Like I didn't expect that, but the audience sort of like finished the show. The show only exists in conversation with the audience.
That is such a wild transformation as well. And, the loop as well, going from where you started and now, still learning from a show, because you're having fun, you're enjoying it, you're inspiring many people. But then what you've been able to take from it and still do, that's very rare. I'm glad that you listened and that you were able to put this out there and make that shift. Before we go, how can people follow you? We've got audience members all around the world, especially in America, and you're also coming to Australia. How can people follow you, listen to your music, and all of that stuff?
You can follow me on all the things. You could just Google Ariana and The Rose, and then all sorts of stuff will come up. On Instagram, it's Ariana and The Rose. It's Ariana and The Rose everywhere. Ariana like Grande, but me, and The Rose like the flower.
Amazing. You have such a brilliant story.
Oh, thank you.
You are very inspiring and empowering. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love how Ariana talks about creating content that actually uplifts you. Because when you're going through something like a breakup, it's easy to only focus on the negatives. That can become the whole story we tell. But Ariana flips that. She recognizes that as a performer, she's going to be living with this work for a long time. And if it's built purely from pain or negativity, it's not sustainable, it's not enjoyable, and it's not something you want to carry forward. Instead, she focuses on creating something that supports her, something that keeps her in a good place over time, and something that she remains passionate about. And with content like that, she can keep evolving and growing with it. And that idea isn't just for artists. In life, if we only focus on the worst parts of our experiences, we end up carrying that energy with us long term. And that's not always the healthiest or most helpful way to move forward. As Ariana explains, don't just ask, is this good? Ask, can I keep doing this and still feel like myself? Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy and life.